Hello again, this is SteelZenith, and today I'm going to be looking at a few tanks that are generally considered overpowered in World of Tanks. This Foch 155 here is definitely one of them. It has very high damage potential with its 3-shell autoloader. Takes about 45 seconds, give or take, a few depending on your equipment and your crew skills to reload that clip, and when it's loaded it has an average damage of 2550 in one clip. Now the other reason why the Foch is overpowered or considered overpowered is its front armor. It has a few small weak spots on it, but if you don't hit those, it's very bouncy. The weak spots are these areas here that I'm going to point out. This bar here, but only the center of it, around where it joins the tank. The machine gun port here, and the lower glasses, just this bit below. Now, this means that in a firefight, straight on, it's hard to penetrate. As you can see, T62A tried to fire a snapshot at me and missed, probably, the lower glasses, and hit my tracks instead. In return, of course, I have no problems penetrating his front armor. The Foch 155 is also quite maneuverable, so I guess that's another factor. It's easy to turn your front armor to face the enemy. The aim time on this gun, however, is quite long, and I think it's something to bear in mind when fighting Foch 155s, that their aim time is pretty poor. So the other thing about it is the sides and rear are extremely weak armored, and this long flat top, if it gets hit by RT, it's gonna go through, and it generally gets one shot by tier 10 RT or even some of the tier 9s. You see in this game that the enemy is pushing through the middle while we're holding the flanks, and that makes them extremely vulnerable to shots from the side. Enemy's not playing too well. I decide to hit the reload here. I'm not under pressure. I probably should have done this a while back, but I didn't know if that IS-7 and the T62A were going to push or not, so I held my shots until I had a bit of cover from the M103 before hitting the reload. I let my teammates know that I'm reloading. The main trick to playing this tank is knowing when to hit the reload. It's ammunition management, and of course not getting isolated. This M103 turns his turret to point at me and ask me for help. I've already said I'm reloading, and I tell him again I'm reloading, and now I'm reloaded. I'm going to push up and help him. He shouldn't turn his turret really though. He should just hold down the right mouse button and turn around, mouse over me, and do that. So now I'm reloaded, gonna push forward and try and take out this IS-7. I've got a clip loaded. If I penetrate all my shots, he should be an easy kill. He does have a bit of support in the T62A, but I can get out my shells without having to take too much damage. I get a bit lucky and ammo rack the IS-7, although with a top-down position on an IS-7 like that, and him not angling right, it's pretty easy to hit him right in the ammo rack, which is just behind those headlight areas. So all my shots there penetrated. I took out 2 tanks with 2 shots and did very significant amount of damage to the T62A, who's going to get taken out by the WZ here. So having taken this top area, we're going to hold it and shoot down on those tanks in the middle from here. But this game is pretty much over. They do have 2 TDs, but they're both pretty low health, and those 2 E75s are no match for the rest of the tanks on our team. Their artillery really hasn't been very effective. So we take out the E3 there with an easy shot to the side. I think the high alpha and bouncy front armor is a common factor in a lot of tanks that are considered overpowered in World of Tanks. And autoloaders in general are quite powerful in the right hands. Now, most autoloaders are pretty vulnerable, don't have good armor, but this thing and t57 to a certain extent both have much better armor than other autoloaders. Being able to sit there and take a shot in an autoloader without having to worry that you're going to take significant damage or get critical hits is maybe slightly overpowered, and I think this is something that they should look into. The Foch 155 and the t57 are both scheduled for a nerfing, but I'm not sure quite how they're going to nerf them. E75 inside, and I'm just reloading here when the mouse takes him out. I should be more worried about artillery, but given how ineffective he's been so far, I'm not too worried. Batchat takes one shot at him and I get a lucky shot into the top of him. That's the end of this match. So this next match is in the T57, the Tier 10 American Heavy Autoloader. As you can see, I'm platooned up with another T57 and a 50B. Now, all these autoloaders, I would generally consider them support tanks. They're not that good at taking the hits themselves, very good at dealing damage. Generally going into one-on-one confrontation with these things is not a good idea against a decent player.
Let's get this show on the road.
Do I consider the T57 overpowered? Well, it certainly can deal a lot of damage and it can be very effective. But I think that in general it's not as overpowered as the Foch 155. Not against similar tiered opponents, for certain. Maybe when fighting lower tiers, yes, because it can take out them in one clip. And its reload rate of a clip is quite fast, so if I would suggest ways to nerf this, that would certainly be one of them. This thing has higher DPM than most other tier 10 heavies, so certainly the 50B, which is the only really comparable other heavy, has a much longer reload time, much longer aim time, and between shots as well, it takes longer. Now, as you can see, I'm playing this fairly cautiously. The enemy have a lot of tier 10 TDs, and this thing does not have the armor to bounce them. Again, in an autoloader, it's often about ammunition management. Playing this thing well is not that difficult if you hit your reload when you can. Always potentially having 4 shells in the barrel is where you're strongest. obviously when you've shot all your shells, you're at your weakest. Unlike the 50B, this doesn't have the speed to get away, but it does have a bit better armor. Quite a lot better, I should say. As you can see, most of the enemy were spotted on the other flank, so I'm moving towards the middle to get shots maybe on the hill and to support the flanks. T58 gets spotted in their base. Now this thing isn't the greatest sniper, but if you have 4 shots, you only need to hit one of them on a weak tank like that to be effective. Reloading again. I could have maybe taken a shot at that Foch 155 rather than reloading. I wasn't in much danger myself, so... Should run right into T124's lower glasses, taking him out. As usual, there's someone criticizing our tanks for being support tanks. It's probably some guy that rushed forward and died, as usual. The idiots in this game really make it frustrating at times. So I'm moving over to support the tanks on this flank. They seem to be pushing in with a couple of tanks. And my teammate Mezzi, my platoon mate Mezzi, is coming up behind to support. Lower glasses of an E100. T135 pushes in front of me. I could have taken out that E100 if he hadn't done so. Trying to penetrate the cheeks of the turret. T135 takes him out. Now we know we got their tanks penned up between the H4, H5 area and us. 2 of the Foches get a spot on the hill, so there can't be that many tanks given that the T125 and the IS-7 just showed up at their base. My platoon mate Mezzi takes out one of their Foch 155s from base. I'm going to push up here a bit. And full health Jagdpanzer E100 shows up. Now, I know one of us is going to have to take a shot here. And I'd prefer it not to be me. But I have a quick discussion with my platoon mate Mezzi, and he says he's going to be the one to take the hit. And I'm not going to object if he wants to take the hit instead of me. I'll do it for the next tanks. So just backing up to where our teammates can support us more easily before pushing in. As you can see, my other platoon mate pushed forward into their base, but with their tanks returning, he should have got out of there quicker than he did. Our 268 is there, supporting him, and our IS-7's in the middle, but he should have ran away far earlier. And as he takes the hit from the Jagdpanzer E100, so now we need to finish him off before we can fire again. And this is where 2 T57s shine, taking out opponents so fast. It's pretty unfair on the enemy team in a way. I've got this group of tanks moving up. The FV215B on the flank there shows up. Takes his shot at the T125 and then pulls back. Now my thought at first here is to get up on the hill and see if I can support our 268 and our IS-7. IS-7's currently dueling with the Jagdpanzer E100 and the 268 takes him out. I see the Foch 155 in base, and that's a high priority target, so I decide to wait and see if I can get some shots at him. Without any shots there, I decide to keep the momentum going. IS-7 gets taken out by the Foch 155. And I'm the highest health here, so I need to be the one going forward, which currently I'm not, but I will be soon. Now, at this point, I believe I told my platoon mate to wait and let me take a shot. However, the Foch turns up, I bounce one on his front, but then hit the next one at his side. Unfortunately, I slightly block our Jagdpanzer E100, but he was in no danger really, so well, I'm sorry about that. It's no harm, no foul. Now, we know that most of the tanks are around this corner, and we're both going to need to be fully reloaded for this, so I tell him that I'm reloading. Our Jagdpanzer E100 seems to be eager to get to grips with the enemy, but moving out there against two opponents while we're both reloading is a bad idea. I know that the FV and the Foch and the RT are out here, so I'm using this rock as cover. I missed my first shot on the RT, sure I went below. And I know the Foch has fired at least 2 shots now. Missed one on me. I tried to go for the hatch on the top, but miss, and Messi takes it out. Now I'm reloading again, and we just saw the FE shoot, so me and Messi are gonna tag team this guy. I know that I reload faster than him. I'm taking the left side of this rock, and my teammate Messi is right on the right. I managed to set this guy on fire with my first shot, and finish him off with my clip. With only 2 tanks on the enemy team, this is pretty confident of a win. There's just this T125 left. And I'm still sitting on full health. I tend to play quite cautiously. Maybe should be taking some hits where I'm not. T135 snapshots me in my turret. I know I could reload, but I think that with the 3 shells I should be able to finish him off. Not taking into account that this player is actually really good. He shoots me 1 in the turret. Playing this really very well, very smart, using cover where he can. Now he notices me aiming for his lower glasses and starts moving back and forth to stop me from hitting it. And now I can just unload into his hatch. But here you can see, this is the weakness of the T57 if you try and close combat things. It can take a lot of damage very fast, especially against tier 10s. And generally you shouldn't be going for a brawl in it. So for the last game I'm going to take a look at the Type 59. This is one of my favourite tier 8 premium tanks. Partly because it is maybe slightly overpowered. I think that when it first came out it was more overpowered. But these days, with the changes they've made to it and the more powerful tier 8 guns coming out on mediums, it's no longer as overpowered as it was. It's still a very good tank, however, and it still has relatively bouncy front armor. The gun, it doesn't have a huge fire rate actually, and although the alpha damage is pretty decent, it certainly gets out DPM'd by other tier 8 mediums. Now, on Mountain Pass, in a medium, I like to go underneath this bridge, whichever side I'm starting on, although especially from the southern base. This is 244 with his back turned to me. He spots me, but that just gives me an opportunity to get into a slightly better position. And I'm just waiting for him to back up. I notice a couple of tanks that are sitting on the glacier road, but given that I've got a lot of support from the back, I feel fairly safe moving forward here. An IS-3 on the bridge, who could be a concern. So I'm just moving forward fairly cautiously here. And now I can start shooting at this T-44. As you can see, the aim time on this is not that good. And that snapshot failed to penetrate because I went into his turret. Next shot, however, is an easy pan, and now the T-44 behind has noticed that I'm engaging him, and that his attention is elsewhere, and starts shooting him in the back as well. He manages to penetrate my front armor, which with the T-44 gun isn't that hard to do. There's an SU-100Y over there, and I know that this Tiger P's been spotted. Gonna aim carefully at this SU-100Y and penetrate him in the side. I consider the SU-100Y quite a high priority target. It's an easy kill, but it has a massive gun, so should get taken out if you can. This IS-3, I managed to track him, and he's either used his repair kit or doesn't carry any. So I'm just gonna sit here shooting in his jack wheel and dealing damage. If you ever get into a position with a medium like this, always take advantage of it. Hummel steals my kill. Absolutely pointless. I would have had him the next shot. I've obviously got him. Hummel shouldn't be wasting shots on tanks that are already dead in anything but the fact that I need to fire one more shot. As Tiger P comes crashing down the hill just as I come around the corner and tracks himself, which is pretty lucky. And the Tiger P has pretty good front armor, but it's only in the superstructure. The lower glacis is pretty easy to ban, and that's where I'm aiming on this guy. I'm not even sure he has the long 88. I think it's another gun that he has. The hatch as well, and most of the turret outside of the mantlet is an easy shot. Finish him off with a shot to the lower glacis. So I'm already sitting on 3000 damage. That IS-3 really helped me to get my damage up. And I'm trying to do the same thing to this Panther here. But he repairs and gets out before I can perma-track him and deal damage. Now I noticed that that Tiger 2 was spotted down there, and there's nothing really to deal with that Tiger 2 at the moment. Back at there, T150 is no match for it, and the SU-100M1 and it get taken out pretty quickly. There's a Black Prince who manages to take out this T-34-1, but Black Prince against the Tiger 2 is not a good matchup, so I do what all good mediums do and come back and help out where I'm needed. As Panther gets spotted, and I pause to take a shot at him from the hill, which was just a bit greedy, really. Now, while the Tiger 2 is very good against enemy mediums, against heavies, it's not as good as other tier 8 mediums, which is where I feel it gets balanced out. However, if you can track an enemy like that with a medium, you should always do it. He gets a good shot off and manages to penetrate, but now I've tracked him and he's burnt his repair kit. I can just move around him on the other side. If you ever get circled by a medium like that in a heavy, always get your back against something so that they have to move further around in order to get around you. This Panther on the bridge takes a plunge into off the bridge to avoid getting killed by the T-34, and I missed my snapshot on him. He's now chewing through our tier 6 jumbo and takes him out pretty quick. Now this guy's just gonna get taken out by a T-34, jumps on him and then hammer racks him. So yeah, there's three games in tanks that are generally considered OP in World of Tanks, and I guess by showing games of myself doing well in them, I'm not really doing any favors to their reputation. But most of these tanks are only really overpowered if you don't know where to hit them, if you don't coordinate with your teammates, and if you let them take advantage of their strengths. Now, the Foch and the Type 59 are both tanks that you should always aim to track if you can, because the Type 59 is extremely vulnerable in the sides and rear, gets ammo racked very easily, and if you see a chance to do so, you should do it. And the T57 is a tank that, while against lower tiers, is extremely powerful. Against its own tier, I feel that it's actually fairly balanced against its own tier, as long as it gets a bit of a nerf in terms of its aim, its reload time, and aim time, and time between shots. It's the gun that makes that tank overpowered, not the tank itself. Its armor is relatively weak, and it's susceptible to critical hits, like many of these so-called overpowered tanks. So anyway, hope you enjoyed watching these games, and once again, I'm SteelZenith, and thanks for watching.